Welcome to Toxicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation.
We're rolling.
We're rolling.
It's Texas rap.
1, 2, 3, shoot. Ba-doom. After you, sir.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talksicology, the latest and greatest podcast in the universe on recovery, addiction, mental health, and music. And I'm rocking my brand new Toxicology shirt. It says Jason and Joseph and music and recovery and mental health. Are we selling these?
Yeah.
We're selling these?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is Jason Cabello, co-host with the most, and he says we are selling these on Talksicology.com.
Top billing. I got top billing.
Yeah, you got top billing.
Nice.
I think it sounds better than I thought about it. I was like, Joseph and Jason? No, Jason and Joseph.
Okay, yeah. It sounds better.
It sounds better. Yeah. So how you been? I haven't seen you in a couple weeks.
I know, it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a little crazy on my end.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just got back from Florida. And
Yeah.
I talked about a couple episodes back about my mom getting flooded and all that good stuff. So I got out there, helped shovel some of her belongings, all of her belongings, into a dumpster. And yeah, she gets to start anew.
Nice.
Which is, as we know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I've come up with a new motto because she did have a couple of breakdowns along the way.
I'm sure.
So my new motto to her is just like, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's going to be great. The saddest thing, and now I'm trying to find a way to get back, her gold records got ruined.
Oh.
Which is pretty much all she had left from my stepfather. We got robbed back in the 90s. We had about 35 gold records from all the records he had produced and engineered. Yeah. And the majority of them got stolen back then, but we had a few of them left. And then the water just came up through it and it mold and everything.
No.
So I got to actually rip the gold record itself out of some of them, but the plaque's gone, all that. So now I have to deal with the record industry, the RIAA, to see if we could get some of those.
Some official ones.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you can't get the official ones, I'm sure you could find some sort of artisan to make them into something.
True. Yeah. That's worth it.
You're such a good boy, taking care of your mama.
Yeah, I really did feel like the recovery in action while I was doing this stuff, because I was like, I never would have been handle this stuff before. I was a child up until I was 42 years old, so it was nice to be able to be there for someone, and not just take.
Speaking of action, how's your mental health?
Mental health is pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. Yeah. You?
I feel like we were chronicling your journey with the OCD stuff for a while, and then you were like, "Oh, it's getting better," and then we stopped talking about it.
Oh yeah, my ADHD.
Your ADHD,
yeah,
yes, I knew it was something with.
It's still so. When I pack to go somewhere, especially if I'm bringing camera equipment, it comes out. You will. I'm sure I drove Gabby crazy with my pacing, because I have to set aside if I'm going in an airplane, like I need an hour and a half to pace.
Yeah.
Before I actually get in the car. So
to literally pace back and forth.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. So I just give myself the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe put on an audiobook or something, make the most of it.
Get your steps in.
Yeah, but that's what I've learned about it. So there's some things that are going to happen, and instead of getting frustrated about it, just kind of use it. Maybe I could carry some weights and then
just do farmer carries.
Farmer carries.
Yeah. Get those forearms ripped.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm okay. I've been noticing something about myself.
Okay.
I do not like to be taken care of.
Mm.
So, two things have happened in the past week, which really kind of illustrated this to me. On Sunday, my in-laws are in town. They own a boat on the lake, right? And my wife says, "Hey, we're going out on the lake today. We're going to get there. We're going to have some lunch, and then we're going out on the boat." And when we arrive, I discover that we are not having lunch.
Oh, no.
We are going out on the boat and then having dinner. And I am a person who likes food.
Oh, you hungry boy.
And so I make one comment on like, oh, it's dinner, not lunch. And all of a sudden, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, and my wife kick into like, oh no, Joseph is hungry. We must feed him. And I'm like, no, just stop. And they're like, there's the taco place. We can grab a taco real quick. I was like, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Just let's go get on the boat. My wife runs down the dock while we're loading up the boat to go get tacos, brings them back, and I'm like, I don't want any fucking tacos. If I wanted a taco, I would have said I want a taco, leave me alone. And it turned into this whole thing for 2 hours where people are constantly mentioning these tacos. And I'm like, if one more person says something to me about tacos. And then anyway, they were just trying to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I was not having it.
Well.
And then yesterday I was having kind of like a downer day.
But here's the thing. If they would have had tacos ready for you on the boat, you would have been fine with it.
Yes. I didn't want anybody to go to any trouble to get something to feed me. Yesterday I was having kind of a downer day, and my wife was like, oh, what can I do to make it better? And I was like, oh, the perfect evening would be coming home from baseball. Like, I just want to, read for a little bit, take a shit, whatever. And I get home and there's like candles lit in the room, and my book and my Nintendo Switch are sitting next to each other on the bed. And I'm like, and I accept the being taken care of, but part of me is just like feeling super guilty about sitting there reading my book. And I don't know, there's probably some childhood thing of not wanting to be a burden.
Yeah.
But it's probably something I need to work on.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when it's like your family.
Yeah.
Like just trying to do something nice for you.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you're comfortable and fed.
Yeah.
And they were probably doing it more for themselves because they're probably like, oh my God, he's going to be so grumpy. And he's going to be the worst person to hang out with. Like, just eat the fucking taco, Joseph.
Yeah. But no.
Yeah.
Probably like 3 hours later on the boat, I ate a taco while my wife was in the water.
Did you sneak eat it?
Yes.
I didn't want anybody to see how much you were enjoying it.
It was a good taco.
Yeah.
Shout out to Chelsea. It was a good taco. It was a egg and brisket breakfast taco.
You're a saint, Chelsea.
Speaking of saints, today's guest is actually currently up for canonization. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, wow, I didn't get the notes on that one.
But today's guest has a lot of different words that we could use to characterize, first off, amazing person, super energetic, very giving person, volunteers for a ton of nonprofits. I want to say nutritionist, coach, masseuse, licensed massage, licensed hair, beauty stuff, all kinds of things.
But don't come looking for a massage.
Don't come looking for a massage. Licensed real estate?
Wow.
Something.
Why don't we let
fitness coach, life coach, executive coach, just all kinds of crazy things. If you need help with anything, she's someone who probably has some sort of skill set to help you with that. Today's guest, Miss Jayme Shiarla.
Hello.
Hey, you're here. You were there, and now you're here.
Yes, and I'm so excited.
Magic.
Yes.
So before we get into it, I butchered your introduction and bio and whatever. So how do you introduce yourself?
Besides an astronaut.
Honestly, it was super impressive because it made me feel way cooler than what I am. So you do know a lot of my story already, which is I have a very diverse resume personally and professionally. So I have tried a little bit of everything. But currently, I am a mindset transformation coach, certified life coach, and NLP practitioner. And yes, I volunteer for a lot of different organizations. Background in hair and massage therapy and insurance and investments.
So at one point you were licensed in
yes.
massage.
Yes.
Okay.
Currently.
I still am licensed, but I do not practice anymore.
Yes.
So just like you mentioned,
Okay. Yeah.
do not call me.
Do not call Jayme for
And I was
Correct.
not implying that you still provide any of those
that's what I'm saying.
services.
So you crushed it. You crushed it. I was like shocked. I didn't even know how to respond. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you remembered all of those details about me. So yeah.
So let's just briefly unpack what some of those things mean that you do.
Yeah. So kind of in my journey, I'm a big believer that we can only connect the dots looking backward. And so I feel like a lot of my experience through the School of Hard Knocks is what kind of got me to who I am and why I do what I do today. And even in my own journey, what I have found is that it all starts and ends within the mind. And I like to treat fitness is a very, very big part of my life. I am not a fitness coach, but well, you guys, your podcast has been going for at least 5 minutes. So I went more than 5 minutes without mentioning, technically, but I love CrossFit. So I am very big into that, but I like to treat the brain like it's a muscle in the gym, right? Like if you don't go to the gym, you can't expect your muscles to get stronger if you're not utilizing them. It's going to get uncomfortable. You have to have goals in place and you've got to create good habits with it and a good mentality around it. So it's like, that whole strengthening of a muscle to get it stronger, I feel like the brain has to work the same way. So if we want to break old habits, yes, that's going to require maybe digging into some traumas, and a lot of it stems from that. But I almost like to see it as like, therapy helps you with the why. As a coach, I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do now moving forward? So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And so one thing, a thread that I see through all the different things that you've tried to do is that they all seem to be centered around helping individuals, right? And I have a theory that people who are drawn to help, whether it be through being a therapist or a counselor, working in a rehab, coaching people, that people get there through having to learn how to help themselves in their own journey.
Ooh. I like that.
Right. Sometimes people refer to therapy as the broken profession because like all the trauma therapists all have trauma and all the addiction therapists, we're addicts, et cetera, et cetera.
But I think that means you also have skin in the game and you are the most equipped to be able to help those people because you've been in their shoes or at least can relate to them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, most guests that we have on the show are individuals who are in recovery, and it's really easy to get into their story of, like, how did you get addicted to drugs? What happened? What's it like now, et cetera. And sometimes I think there's an arrogance that we have is like, we're the only people who've been through some stuff, or like we're the only people who've had a journey of self-discovery. And that's absolutely not the case. So getting into a little bit of your story, where were you born? How did you grow up? What was life like early on?
Yeah. So, born and raised in small town, middle of nowhere, Ohio. Like we would have bring your tractor to school day. So,
no, for real?
Dead serious. Yeah. We didn't even have a stoplight in our town. Like it was insane. So just, born and raised in a really small town, which I'm so grateful for because it allowed me to really just get a good value system in place and foundation of like how to work hard for a dollar and like how to treat people in like close relationships because it wasn't like a super chaotic scenario in that sense. Have two sisters that are way older than me, so I'm definitely the baby of the family. And
were you the surprise child?
Yeah, I think I was the last chance to make the marriage work, and it was kind of also an oops. Right?
I was too.
Yeah. So because there's a 7-year and 11-year age gap between my sisters and I. So, yeah. Again, it was like the salvation. Let's try to fix this type thing, and then oops, hey, here comes Jayme, right? So,
so child of divorce.
Yes. So, they divorced when I was 5, all at that same time. My grandfather had passed away while that was happening, and so I always kind of like to say that anger and alcohol raised me. Born and raised in a Catholic home where it was forced to go to church every Sunday, but like it was chaos in the relationship. And even at the age of 5, I was able to recognize like, nah, these two people shouldn't be together. But then kind of what happened from there is they were trying to grow and figure out, what they needed to work through. I was almost the ammunition on how they were able to hurt each other. So was very much tossed back and forth and was in two totally different dynamics, other than the fact that alcohol was kind of always the go-to coping mechanism.
For both of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we're in the middle of nowhere. What else are you going to do, right? Like
tractor pulls.
And then listen, and you had to wait for those events to come along, right? So it wasn't just every weekend type of thing, or if you even wanted to go to a movie theater, you had to drive 30 minutes to get there in a completely different town. So, even the event of going to the grocery store, you waited till you needed a whole bunch of stuff because you want to make it worth your while to have to drive that far to go get it.
It's a half-day trip with the wagon and the whole thing.
And you have even like only gas stations being open specific time frames. So like there wasn't really a lot to do. Like that's just what it was. And so kind of just going even through that journey, I learned at a very young age that like I learned how to function in chaos. Like when things were calm, that's when I would develop anxiety because that meant ish was about to hit the fan. So
how long before the shoe drops?
Oh yeah, right. So like I thrived in chaos, but then what I also found very quickly is that like I just want to avoid being at home. So I was in a small town where we didn't have to really compete for sports because we didn't have enough people to play them. So they're like, welcome, join us. So I was in basketball, volleyball, cheerleading, track, softball, and I was babysitting all by the age of 11, like anything to just.
So your way of coping was, what are the ways that I can get out of this house?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
How can I get off the radar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because by that point, like even fast forwarding to being in 8th grade, like every time I would finally just be at home, my mom's like, Jayme, you're just so angry all the time. Like it's unbearable to be around you.
Yeah.
So she made me go to the doctor. And in 8th grade, they diagnosed me as depressed. And so I became a science experiment where in a 6-month time span, they tried me on 4 different antidepressants. Yeah. So that all kind of happened. And then
what year was this?
So if I would have been like 13 and I graduated in 2009, so like 2003, 2004-ish.
So one thing that I noticed when I was living like that, like living in chaos, and there was something that I was trying to avoid all the time. Do you remember that feeling when the day was finishing up and then you were getting ready to head home? And I just remember when I was avoiding a home situation, this feeling that I would have when it was like all the things that I was doing to busy myself were done, and now I have to go back into this thing that I'm trying to avoid with all these things.
I don't know if I actually, like, that's a very awesome question because I don't know if I ever really remember that part. I just remember that I was just so exhausted and just in a bad mood, and I just felt so misunderstood, I think, within my home. Like, because then then you're also like taking that and being like a teenager and like stepping in through hormones and stuff, and like you don't understand my life, you don't get it. So it's like I by that point just wanted to shut down and I wanted people to leave me alone, and so like I isolated myself into my bedroom like all the time when I finally got home. But I don't recall that. I'm giving myself some mental homework when I get home to really like sit in that.
I have a follow-up question. So so you talk about like you get home and you go isolate in your room. What would you do in your room? Like music, drawing, writing, phone with, like what was your coping thing then at home? So
that is a great question because this is an area of mental homework that is currently being worked through. So one, it was either just like I would turn music on. It was that I would just try to go to sleep because I was really good at school too. And I would like multitask. So I never had homework to take home with me. But like binge eating, which we can, that'll foreshadow you a journey that is will be shared in a moment as I kind of pull the story together. But I think it was just like using my room as like an escape from the world. So it was just self-soothing and self-comforting of whether it's like food because I can find a little bit of pleasure in doing that or whatever it may be. And it's almost like, it's interesting too. And why I'm so honored to be able to be on this is because although like, I don't think that like my situation with drugs and alcohol ever got to say a point that maybe some of people who are in recovery on, I think still no matter what, it was a matter of needing to just escape from reality. And so it was almost more of like that personality trait that I had. So if it was work, if it was food.
Absolutely.
Still at that point, I was like, I did my first keg stand when I was in 8th grade, when I was like 7, because again, middle of nowhere, like we had 4-wheelers and I would steal my dad's cigarettes and go drive out to the woods and smoke them. Right. Yeah. Like, so, all of that was still there. And then for me and just the town I grew up in, that's all there was to do. Like we would sit out in the woods. We had this place called the Shack and everybody would drive
What happened
out
at
there
the Shack?
Oh, so much stuff. So much stuff.
We can fill in the blanks on that one.
So much stuff.
But I love where you're going with this just because, even for individuals who are in recovery, right? I talk about, growth doesn't stop with just stopping using alcohol and drugs. And most people I know who have more than, let's say, 5-6 years of sobriety have had like a secondary crisis, whether it be if you want to call it an addiction to food or porn or sex or money or work or perfectionism or working out even. A lot of the guys in particular in early recovery, all of a sudden they're just talking about protein, talking about supplements, talking about reps.
You shifted your money from your left pocket to your right pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you had a couple different things going on, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of alcohol and maybe some drugs. I don't know. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yes.
but self-soothing with brisket breakfast tacos.
If only those were a thing then. No, we were like potato chips
No, y'all ain't got
Twinkies.
no brisket in Ohio, right?
Probably, the tacos probably weren't that great. And what was the name of the town?
Holgate.
Holgate.
Not like like Colgate, like the toothpaste in H. Holgate. Population. We were actually a village. Population 1,000 people.
Oh my God.
Wow. So every time somebody was born or passed away, was there the guy who went up and changed the sign, the population?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Listen, I rented in a duplex, the village that I lived in. And when I was doing hair, I would walk across the railroad tracks and I worked at the salon that was right there. This is literally, like I said, there's pros and cons to everything in life.
Yeah.
The cons was that it was small town, small-minded people, and everybody thought they were entitled to know your business. Yeah. Mind you, I said it was a duplex. So I shared this gravel drive with somebody in where I lived. And the one time I randomly got a text message and was like, so what were you doing this weekend? And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, we saw that car in your driveway. I'm like, right. Was it mine? And I have a neighbor. So maybe it was somebody they had over. And even if it wasn't, what does that matter?
Just everything got noticed.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Let's see, you got a haircut.
Oh, yeah.
So being the local hairdresser, you probably were privy to all the gossip.
You had all the dirt.
And that was one thing where it was so funny. I never fit the stereotype of a hairdresser because I'm like, y'all, I got enough stuff going on in my life. I'm the last person that's going to know anybody else's business. I will be your therapist and you share with me all you want. But past that, I'm going to go home and forget about it. And I'm going to go handle my own stuff. So
let's rewind a little bit, right? You're in high school, using staying busy as a coping skill, which I highly identify with. Unhealthy relationship with food, some binge eating, do you fit the stereotype of graduating top of your class with 9 different patches on your varsity jacket, and when do you start to see the need for some growth or some different coping with how you deal with things?
So I still really can't even give credit because I felt it's so crazy. So much of that is a blur, and I think that in itself was a coping mechanism of just not trying to focus on my reality in that moment. Because I can't even say that I was aware of what my coping was at that point. Because then fast forwarding to when I was 16, I knew everybody and I was in so many sports and everything, but I didn't want to be around those people. I always just naturally was, I had 2 way older sisters. So I was always the obnoxious young one. So I was very mature for my age too. So majority of my friends by the time I got in high school were already out of school.
Yeah.
And also I at least had a good game plan. The overachiever in me is I was I want to try to get as many college credits as I can while I'm in high school. But I'm if I go to hair school while I'm still in high school, because we had vocationals, right? Yep. So you could learn a trade. I can graduate, start working and have a career, but then I can still go to school to have as a backup plan or tie in with it. So when I was 16, or as a junior, I ended up going to hair school and then was still in all those sports. So all around that time, I actually lost 2 of my best friends in a car accident on the same day. And at that moment, I wish, all I can say is it would have been God, because I really can't say why a 16-year-old would have thought of this, but I was I'm not going to rely on a pill to get me through this. And so I pulled myself off my antidepressants, walked away from my faith, because literally I had to walk across the street from one showing to the next, had to leave a funeral early to make it to the next one in time. And so those were the churches that I was forced to go to every Sunday with already this weird relationship, right? within what that looked like. And so I just stopped going. But then I just very much, even more so, I think, became addicted to doing as many things as possible. And then I took on more jobs. And so, when I had graduated high school, I was able to start working, right? And I swore I was never going to be with a man like my father, and good old reticular activating system. Dated the teenage version. So life spiraled even more. So drinking was even heavier. Drugs now came into play.
What's the big drug in Ohio?
I would say, at least in the area where I was at, the last, at least that I'm aware of, was probably cocaine was probably the biggest one.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking either meth or opiates.
Well, what year was this, roughly?
So like 2008, 2009.
Okay, so probably some prescription pain meds too. Ohio.
I mean, every party that I was at, there was also this pill at the time called Elmo, which was like some mix of, it was a red pill. That was pretty much the biggest part, but it was like, I know there was like ecstasy and stuff like that. And I honestly, I was taking stuff, I don't even know what was in it, but that was one of the trending ones in the big college town in that area, which was Bowling Green State University was the closest one. So, which I think at one point they were even known as like the highest STD college. So, thriving in Northwest Ohio.
Wow.
So, so it sounds like, you're in this small town that you grew up in, you're going through a lot of different changes, walking away from your faith, getting off your medications, getting into a replication of your parents' relationship, it sounds like.
Yep.
How do you get out? Or how do you even, when do you decide to get out? What's the plan there?
So what's funny, and now I'm kind of connecting my own dots with the question you would have asked me, ever since I was like 15, I was like, the day I graduate high school, I'm out of this small town. Well, I graduated and I literally made it to the next small town over like 15 minutes down the road.
Well, that's progress.
Right. But then I got sucked back in.
Oh.
Then I moved like 45 minutes away and then I got sucked back in. Like I kept just getting sucked back in. And so while in this super toxic relationship, physical abuse, mental abuse, cheating, drugs, alcohol,
all this stuff,
all of that happened. Luckily, no marriage or kids, but all of that had happened. And then during that journey, lost friends to murder, suicide, overdose, car accidents, family members to cancer, old age, all of that. So that was something that was very just prominent in my life at that point too. And so throughout that journey, I started going to massage therapy school, and I was coaching competitive cheer. I was coaching gymnastics. I was waitressing on the side. I was going to school for business management. I was everywhere, right? Anything to avoid the problems that were here.
I just don't want to sit with myself, with my brain, with my heart, and see what's going on in there.
Yes. And then so you now take this, I think also at that point is like, because of me also being used to the chaos, it was like, I became very much a control freak because, okay, I am only capable of controlling and taking care of what I can. So I'm going to manage this the best that I can. So then that, I think, where along with like the good old daddy issues at the time, I think it was also that like I grasped onto that relationship because I wanted to fix him. Because yet again, it was an avoidance tactic to have to work on me. So in early adulthood, I think I still wasn't fully aware of actually getting out, because I wasn't seeing the areas of me that was the problem.
And do you think any of it had to do, like, you're fixing your father, since this guy is essentially a younger version of your father?
Like, I'll make this one work?
No, I think it was mainly of just like, I wanted to fight so hard to have somebody like that to love me in the way that I needed that he didn't. So I wouldn't say it was that I wanted to fix it. Yeah, it was like being able to get enough to be accepted or to experience that. And so instead it's like, because I always even used to joke and say, I was like, I will bend over backwards until I break and then I'll find a new place to break. Like no matter what, like I was determined to make somebody like that love me. So I think that was kind of what it was.
So you just mentioned that word enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to be enough for him, for, for yourself. I've listened to your podcast.
Have you? Oh, I feel so honored. It always makes me so happy because I was just like, why not? Let's do it. And it just makes me really happy.
In a recent episode, there's you go into a whole thing about like the word enough and what does it even mean? Yes. And have we given any thought to what what enough is defined as for us.
Yes.
So, are you enough now? What is enough?
Yes. So, can I actually? Is that okay if I share some of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was a cool thing that came full circle when I was working with one of my clients, like within the last few months. And it was on this topic because like right now that's also like the trending phrase. Like I think it's so great that the mental health awareness is out there, but it's still getting like sexified where it's like based on how many likes you can get for it. So there's still some form of validation to come rather than I think the majority of being able to resonate and like use it for what it needs to be used for as a movement. And so, I was like, okay, this word enough, like, it's say your affirmations and you can manifest being enough by telling yourself every morning, I am enough. And I'm like, okay, but let's pump the brakes and let's actually talk about the definition. And so that's what I do on that episode is I break down like the Webster's Dictionary definition of what it means to be enough. And how this continued to unfold was my client was explaining to me her definition. And it was just very, very high standards. And I was like, it almost sounds like enough means you're perfect. She's like, yeah, I think that's fair to say. I'm like, okay. So then what's the difference between being perfect and being enough? And she's like, there isn't. And so that's again where I was like, let's actually pay attention to what we are associating enough to be in our head, right? Like if I do this, then I will be enough to be loved. If I do this, then I will be worthy enough of this success, right? If I do
my biceps are this big,
yes.
If my belly is this flat, if I make this much money,
yeah.
if I have this like, piece of clothing,
right.
If I have this car,
yeah.
If I have this many likes,
yes,
right? It's this unrealistic definition of enough that we have. And so the example that I then gave was like, okay, you take a test, right, in school. If you get a 100% on that test, that is a perfect grade because you can't do any better than that. You like completed that at the best of the ability. Okay. But if you need a C to pass, and that's a 67%, that was enough, right? So there's a really big gap in between those two numbers. And so there is a big differentiator between being enough and being perfect. And then where I end up going into that episode is with doing hair, doing massage therapy, when I, even my driver's test, but like for life insurance, for my Series 6, all of those tests, I can't even remember what my score was. So it didn't matter that it wasn't perfect because it was enough. And I was enough to be able to perform and help and serve it the way that I was able to in those arenas. So it was just, thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, I just think it's super cool. And I mean, if you don't mind me, like, I love giving call to actions. Anybody who's watching or listening, like, I would very much encourage you to, like, at the top of a piece of paper, like, make time and write out the word enough and what that truly looks like, feels like, sounds like, and even put it into a sentence on how you would define enough. And then do it for perfection and allow yourself to compare your own notes and see how fair and how right or wrong you're really treating yourself. So I know it was a long answer, but
no, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Back to the unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So trying to be enough for this guy.
Yeah.
In some way, as Jason was pointing out, like trying to get like the love that you felt like you didn't get from your dad from this guy. At what point do you break that cycle?
At what point do you say, I've had enough?
I've had enough.
So, well, it was again going into fixer mode and control freak mode where it was, it's me, I'm the problem, I'm the broken one, I'll go back to therapy. I got put back on antidepressants and was still trying to do all these things while being in this relationship that was just not aligning with anything. I even was trying to force him to go to church. Because I'm like, if I'm going to marry you someday, I need you to go to church and I need you to prove it to me now. And then I was like mothering him where like we would go to church. I was like, so what did you learn about it? But I wasn't even like doing it for me anymore. It was like control freak and fixing everything. And during that time, alcohol and drugs was very much the coping mechanism. And, quite literally like going to Elmo and cocaine was the only thing that actually would allow us to be in a happy like moment of our relationship because we were both on something that made us feel awesome. Yeah. So the likelihood of me getting my head bashed into a window, like one of the scenarios, wasn't as likely. So there was multiple times while that, because of being on an antidepressant, I had attempted suicide on multiple occasions. So again, it was me just like imagining this one day of when it finally all just got to where it needed to be. And so I can't actually even give the credit. And this, I think, hopefully can set some souls free by hearing this. I used to not like to share this part of my story because I thought it made me weak. I wasn't the reason why it finally ended. There was a scenario, my landlords literally lived right next to the duplex that I was in, and awful situation happened that night. He shattered my entire front door. We had to call the cop because it was small town.
The cop.
Yes,
the cop.
Yes. And because it was such a small town, it was the grandson of my landlords. So now it's like, no matter what, like I already live next to them, so they probably heard the noises. 2, their grandson's probably going to tell them about it because he knows it's their property. So I can't run from this. Yeah. And it's going to be in the newspaper for everybody to know as I'm coaching the team that's about to go compete at an internationals competition. Like everything was just all right there. So with that, I was like, no, like you have to get out. Like this obviously isn't working. So I kicked him out, but like still desperately was trying to, when I would drink on the weekends, was trying to like drunk text him and bring him back home and all that type of stuff. And then it was just finally to a point that he ended up finding someone else, and within the next couple months had moved in with her. So I didn't have the choice to be like, I am woman, hear me roar, and I am too good for you. It wasn't that. I had no choice.
But it kind of stole your thunder a little bit.
But
well, in the recovery world, we say that's God doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whatever your conception of God may be.
And so what I find interesting is, because I have these little things too, like with you, it was relationship at this point. There's always this feeling like this is all I need to do to make this perfect. It's going to be marriage. It's going to be him going to church. How far did you keep that out of a realistic goal? Like, say, you know what I mean? It's always got to be like the goalpost keeps moving the closer you get to this. Like if you guys are getting engaged or something, you think that's going to make it perfect. But now it's going to be when we get married, it's going to be, you know, we're drinking and partying now, but when we do, we're going to settle down, we're going to get sober. Did you always purposely keep it just a little bit far out of reach just so you had that to still grasp for?
What's wild is that, like, I mean, it never led to that. He never even attempted to propose. Like, it's not like I ended up knocked up where that was the next step that we had to picture and where I could get hopeful. Like, because even like in the situations, like when the physical abuse would happen, it was always when we were drinking. So I wasn't afraid of him.
Right.
It was just like, it was the alcohol that did it. Yeah, so I'm like, this isn't him outside of drinking. So it's like totally fine. So I would brush it off, and I didn't treat it as if it was this toxic relationship, but toxically thinking it was that we love each other so much because we are able to still stay together after seeing the ugliest sides of each other.
We found love in a hopeless place.
But it was always hopeless.
But there's that thing that, you know, and you could put whatever, the relationship, the addiction. Mm-hmm. There's this thing that as long as you keep the need to fix there, you have something to focus on. Do. And that's all. It's like the carrot, you know, that's always dangling that far ahead of you that you can never get.
Mine would almost be like the hamster on a hamster wheel, like just sprinting in place, getting nowhere fast because, again, like nothing ever necessarily got better. It was just like, okay, like one of these days he's going to wake up and he's going to realize that this isn't working and he's going to be more open to like how I'm trying to fix him. Yeah. Right? It was the potential I was addicted to.
Yeah.
So God or the universe, you know, removes this relationship. It's not an option for you. It's off the table.
Yep.
So at what point do you get off that hamster wheel and start to find the right steps for you to start healing and growing and becoming who you are today?
Mm-hmm. So I think finally breaking free from the small town was the biggest step that I took. My goal at that point was like, I had this vision of living in Florida, but with all of the things I had to do, I had to wait till my licenses would get approved to go because all of my livelihood was based off of that. And I wanted to make sure that that's what I was going to be doing. And so my sister lived in Toledo, which was about an hour away. So I was able to move in with her. And then also through that journey, she was got sucked into a network marketing company at the time. It was like a health and wellness company, but they were very faith driven and like big on personal development. No, it was called Zija.
Oh, I've never heard of that one.
It was like with this plant moringa. I think they're now affiliated with, I always forget. I don't remember what the name is. Matter. But yeah, either
it's
way.
All
so
trash.
Yeah. right. It's a magic potion, right? But I will say I'm so grateful for that experience because one, I started getting around a completely different type of people than what I experienced in this small town where all you do is you go to school, you get married, you become a nurse, a hairdresser, a farmer. You drink beer and then you show up to all your kids' football games at a school that never wins any football games, and then everybody gets trash afterwards. Like that
could
was
also be the cop.
the cop. Yeah, we didn't even actually have a police station that we utilized.
Just his garage.
They would just drive from the other city over because it was just so small. So yeah, but got really just addicted to personal development, and I found some really good mentors where it's like, listen, are you complaining just to complain, or what are you going to do with this? And so it was in that time frame where I actually really started to enjoy like reading and understanding that, like, I'm going to quote Jim Rohn, if you want things to change, you need to change. If you want things to get better, you need to get better. And one of the very first books that was like recommended to me that completely changed the trajectory of my life was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Mm-hmm. And it was just showing how it's like those little habits that at the time don't seem like it's doing anything really ends up being a big deal down the line. So it's like randomly choosing to stop listening to the news when you're driving to work in the morning. And then you don't notice it maybe after the first couple of weeks, but then 6 months to a year later, and you're like, holy cow, like I'm just in such better moods in the morning. Well, right, because you're not feeding your brain with garbage and like putting yourself in a bad mood and being triggered by like really nasty things that people have to say. So like that whole concept just really started changing it. And then finally I was like, okay, like now this is the point where I'm going to continue to work on me, and I'm going to start sitting with the demons that I keep running from. So that was kind of the shift.
Love it. We're getting towards the end of our time, so we always do this. We're like, we stay in like the toxic part of someone's life, but I think that's what, someone who's listening, who's hurting, like that's what they're going to latch on to, right? But let's get to what your life is like today.
Absolutely.
What are the things that keep you fed? What are the blessings? What are the cool things going on with you? That came from this, alcoholic upbringing, divorced parents, being used as the pawn in their relationship, to unhealthy habits with food, to unhealthy relationships, that is because, sitting here now, right, that is not the person I see, right? I think anybody who would meet you today would think like, oh, like her life's been great forever, right? And so I think it's important to get through all that, but then what's it like now?
Yeah. So good. Like it's funny because if you would have asked me if I would have been friends with the version of me that I was even 6-7 years ago, absolutely not. I'd been like, girl, get your shit together.
Jayme Shiarla, circa 2017. Don't recommend.
Yeah. Do not recommend. So yeah, what's really cool, and actually that was a perfect time for you to ask me that question based off of that book, because it is currently how I'm getting to see that book come to fruition in my life of changing the little habits. So I very much have gotten insanely involved with my faith. I got rebaptized in 2021. I didn't ever have to go down the journey of recovery when it came to alcohol, but it still was a coping mechanism at some point in my life, clearly. But honestly, like I just don't have any desire to drink. Like I don't feel obligated to, and it's not because like I'm for or against someone that does. It just doesn't do anything for me, especially within the fitness realm. And finding CrossFit and really getting into, because I was also somebody who went down the rabbit hole of using the gym as my coping mechanism, and it was a form of punishment to try to, again, escape reality. I actually haven't owned a TV in over 5.5 years.
Whoa, that's big.
Yes.
I kind of wish I didn't have a TV.
Yes. Because for me, I don't allow like negative things on my phone. I'm very, very intentional of like where I spend my time, how I spend my time. Like I get up at 4:03 every single morning, and the first 2 hours of my day are dedicated towards going to the Word before I go to the world. And I think just in general is like, even like when it comes to serving and doing all of the things that I still do, because, I have my full-time coaching business. And then I also volunteer for 4 different nonprofits, 2 of which I'm like part of the board on. But it's from a place of not that I have to prove anything to anybody. It's genuinely because it fulfills me so much to pour into other people. So yes, completely on the opposite side of the spectrum in the way I saw life and how I treated people, but more importantly, how I treated myself and the value that I realized that I brought to the world in that.
I have a news flash for you, Jayme. You are in recovery. That is, no matter what you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Because, that's all it is. It's learning what serves you, what doesn't serve you, and then finding something else that makes you feel good to give back. It's all different windows to the same house, you know? And this is all what we're really looking for, right? Like to wake up. When you wake up in the morning, I get the feeling that you're excited to wake up at 4 in the morning.
Up? I am. Let's go.
I'm the same way. And, before I had gotten my shit together, I'd wake up and be like, fuck.
Oh, we're doing this again.
Like, that's what this all is. So,
Absolutely.
and this is what I love about it. It's different paths. You could call it whatever you want to call it, but you found something that made you more than potential.
Ooh, that was good.
That's good.
That was good.
Well,
thank you.
I think also like something that both of you guys have said on that is like, yes, like it's a form of recovery, but I'm sure you guys have seen this meme, but what's the big highway that's always in construction? Is that 183? 35. Yeah. They're like, be like 35 and always be in construction. Whether you're somebody who has, again, who is experiencing to a point of complete addiction where having to enter a recovery program, that doesn't, if you're not growing every day, if you're not learning new things, and if you're not stripping away old layers to you, like you're dying, right? So it's like everybody, I think, is in recovery. I love that you said that. Like it doesn't have to be this stigma, like, because even sometimes, again, I tread lightly, like with the whole mental health. Like that's just like when somebody says diet. Like no, it's a lifestyle. Like is your mental health poor? Or is it good? Like if we had to rank it red, yellow, green, where is it? Mental health isn't a positive movement. It is literally the health of your brain, just like how you would have your physical health. Yeah. Where is it ranked on how you treat it?
And everybody, when they're in their shit, they want a quick fix. They want the pill that's going to fix it. They want the one person who's going to give them the answer. They want to go to treatment the one time and then everything's going to be fixed. But it's readjusting things to find what works for you and to devote your energy to what's working as opposed to what's keeping you in your own way.
Yeah.
A crooked smile.
Yeah.
You can't put braces on your teeth for 24 hours and expect them to stay straight. You have to go through the awkwardness, the discomfort, and the years of wearing them. And even after that, you still have to wear a retainer.
Yep.
And, maybe a crooked smile looks good.
I
have a crooked smile.
Listen, I've never had braces, but I'm just like, as an analogy to also
No, that's really good.
Yeah.
My kid Harper just got his braces off yesterday. But they only took the bottom off, and he was very upset about that. He's got to keep the top ones. But, even like with mental health, like Jason was kind of insinuating, right? Like, even folks that do require some kind of medication, right? There is no medication that will magically fix you, right? If someone needs a medication, there's still behavioral changes, lifestyle changes, mindset changes that can help them, that are going to help them to really fully actualize, We are getting towards the end of our time. And I think that means it is now rapid fire question time.
It's rapid fire question time.
I will go first. So Ben and Jerry's, they're big fans of this show. And they come to you and they tell you, hey, Jayme, we would like to make a signature Jayme Shiarla ice cream flavor. What do you put in the ice cream? And what do you call the ice cream?
Oh, so I'm sorry, Ben and Jerry's. I don't even know if I've had your ice cream. But I'm a lover of peanut butter, chocolate, and cookie dough. So if there was anything that was like cookie dough, brownie, and Reese's, throwing it all in, and we're just gonna call it the perfect marriage.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
I like it. There's layers to that.
This is my go-to, my favorite question. time travel vacation becomes a thing. You could go to any time period in the past, spend a week there. Where and what time period is it?
The 20s.
The Roaring 20s in the U.S., like seeing the flappers dance and all that stuff. That's pretty cool.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I like
Go to a speakeasy.
Yeah. Do the little the jitterbug.
The Charleston.
The Charleston. There we go. All right. So you're having a day where you're just not feeling it, right? You're unmotivated, but you got a lot of stuff to do. What music do you throw on to get you ready to face it?
Either I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston or She's a Bad Mamma Jamma by Carl Carlton. Oh, I didn't even need you to finish that. Let's go. Need your epic cleaning first thing in the morning. Those two jams right there. You can't be in a bad mood.
All right. You have a message to young Jayme who's hanging out in Holgate,
Yes.
Ohio, in the shed.
field, in the shack.
In the shack.
Yeah.
What's your message to that young girl?
I love this question. Trust the process. It will make sense someday. Because I would not change a thing. I would not be who I am and be able to help and know the things that I do if I wouldn't have experienced. So trust the process. It'll all be okay someday.
Bonus question, would young Jayme had listened?
Probably not. So
Right.
it wouldn't have mattered. She'd be like, that freaking crazy
Right,
chick. Like,
exactly.
who does she think she is?
Fucking
right.
time traveling ass old me.
Go back to the 20s. You're not wanted here.
All right. My last question is a two-parter. What's your best lift and how much do you lift in that best lift?
My best or my favorite? Because those would technically
Your
be two different
strongest.
things. My strongest. Back squat, 285.
Right on. Like for reps?
Oh, well, just for one
For
rep
one.
max. Yeah. I just hit a 15-pound PR on my deadlift last week.
Nice. Deadlifting scares me. I always worry about hurting my back. I'm an old man.
I have a sweatshirt. It's got Jesus on it, and he's deadlifting, and it says Jesus, the ultimate deadlifter. It's my favorite. You'll get that one on the way home, maybe.
Yeah.
So good. That's so good. The last thing we like to do before we wrap it up is give you the platform. You know, we have thousands and thousands of views and viewers on YouTube.
500,000.
500,000.
Let's go.
Yeah. Which video hit 500,000?
The one with Jay Amato.
The one with Jay Amato. People love Jay Amato. So, you know, what's your message? What do you want to promote? What do you want our listeners and our viewers to walk away from, to walk away with from this episode of our show?
So obviously, like for myself, since what I do is everything on just kind of like mental fitness, right? Like the mindset coaching. You know, I'm a big believer of therapy and doing things that are going to help you work on yourselves. But so many people, I think, still have this stigma to that. And I mean, I can learn from the homeless guy that I just picked up off the street and took him to the H-E-B on Sunday, right? Like if I choose to, right? So if somebody is coachable and they're willing, that's when the difference is going to be happening. So whether it is a mentor, whether it is a coach, whether it is a therapist, whether it is finding a different group of people that are in a position where you would like to be, I highly encourage that you go that route. You obviously see my content too. So I have a podcast called Make Time for Your Mind with Coach Jayme. I use that to like slow people down, like, and give themselves the opportunity to actually think for themselves and not just be so influenced on what the world tells them. A lot of what I do makes people like pause and think. And I'm like, I want you to be upset with what I said sometimes, because that means you're at least allowing yourself to sit with why that upsets you and what it is that you believe for you, not because a significant other told you, the world told you, whatever. So that would be that. And then I'm sure you will put all the links, but
Yes.
yeah, for all that, you can cyber stalk me, go to my website, whatever.
What's your website?
Oh, Coach Jayme, or sorry, JaymeShiarlaCoaching.com, which it's a difficult first and last name to spell. So
We'll spell it out.
Yeah.
We'll
And
put
then
it in
Jayme
the
the
show
Coach on Instagram. So
No I.
yeah, the
No
Jayme
I.
with no eyes until you get to the last name, and then that fantastic soul is silent. But yeah, and then I guess lastly, because I have a quote for everything. Ooh, I have never shared this one before, so this I feel like would be the perfect place to do it. I actually have a tattoo that goes completely down my spine, so nobody really knows that or gets to see it. but I feel like this would be a very appropriate quote to leave people with because I don't think it's a common one either. It says, "And the dandelion does not stop growing because it's told it is a weed. It says one day they'll be making wishes on me." So even if you catch yourself feeling that you are trash, you're not enough, there's no healing, there's no coming back from what you've done, someday people are going to be making wishes on that. So that's what I want to leave with.
I like that. Who said that?
I don't know, but it's on my back. So
I had a long spine.
oh no, it wraps all the way around. It's a massive tattoo.
Gotcha.
Well, thank you, Jayme, for your time today, for coming down to the studio and sharing so much of your story and what you do now and your energy and your wisdom with us and with our viewers. To our listeners and our viewers, thank you for tuning into this episode. Please don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, comment, tell your friends, get a tattoo that says Talksicology, get the shirts, get the hat. And until next time, as we like to say here on Talksicology, there's 1,000 ways in and 1,000 ways out. And we hope you find yours.